I had just come to accept the fact that my life would be ordinary when
extraordinary things began to happen.
The first of these things came as a terrible shock, and like anything else that changes you forever, split my life into two halves.
Before and after.
Like many of the extraordinary things to come, it involved my grandfather,
Abraham Portman.
Grandpa Portman loved to tell stories. The tallest tales were always about his childhood.
Like how he was born in Poland, but at 12, he'd been shipped off to a children's home in Wales.
When I would ask why he had to leave his parents, his answer was always the same.
The monsters were after him.
What kind of monsters?
Awful, hunched over ones with rotting skin and black eyes.
They stank like putrefying trash. They were invisible, except for their shadows. Squirming tentacles lurked inside their mouths, and could whip out instantly, and pull you into their powerful jaws.
I was afraid of the monsters, but thrilled to imagine my grandfather battling them.
And surviving to tell the tale.
More fantastic still were his stories about life in the Welsh children's home.
It was an enchanted place, designed to keep kids safe from the monsters. On an island where the sun shined every day, and nobody ever got sick
Or died.
Everyone lived together in a big house that was protected by a wise old bird.
Or so the story went.
Grandpa Portman even had a cigar box full of
Old yellow photographs depicting the children from his stories.
But as I got older, I began to have my doubts. Looking back, it struck me how blatant the fakery was.
But Grandpa Portman insisted they were
Real.
So one day, Father sat me down and explained that the stories simply weren't true.
I felt cheated.
Then, a few years later, an extraordinary thing happened. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs.
Hello?
Jacob! Oh, thank God. I need my key. Where's my key?
Hi, Grandpa, what key?
Don't play games. Your father put you up to this. The key to my gun's safe. Just tell me.
Hey, Grandpa, did you take your pills this morning?
They're coming for me, you understand? I don't know how they found me after all these years, but they did. You stay away, you hear me? I'll be fine. Cut out their tongues. Stab them in the eyes. That's all you have to do. If I could just find that damn key. Stay away. Stay away!
Grandpa? Grandpa! I thought I'd better stop by and check on him. When I pulled up, the house was completely dark. I saw a gleam of light from the backyard. I ran out into the dank night. And there, lying face down in a bed of creeper, I saw him.
His shirt was soaked with blood. His voice was barely audible, less than a whisper.
Go to the island, Jakob. Here it is not safe. I thought I could protect you.
Protect me from what?
I should have told you a long time ago.
Told me what?
Find the bird in the loop. September 3rd, 1940. Tell them what happened.
Find the bird in the loop, September 3rd, 1940. Tell them what happened. Find the bird in the loop, September 3rd, 1940. Tell them what happened. September 3rd, 1940. Tell them what happened.
And then, just as he faded away, I felt
Something in the woods.
I turned quickly and saw a figure that seemed to have been transplanted directly from the nightmares of my childhood. And then it was gone. The coroner assured us that my grandfather was killed by wild dogs, but I spent the months following his death plagued by nightmares. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing the creature in the woods. Eventually, my parents took me to see a psychologist.
A quiet man named Dr. Golan.
I thought I'd be a tough case, but Dr. Golan made surprisingly quick work out of me.
The calm, affectless way he explained things was almost hypnotizing.
And within 2 sessions, he had convinced me that
The creature had been nothing more than a product of your imagination. The trauma of your grandfather's death had made you see something that wasn't really there. It was Grandpa Portman's stories that had planted the creature in your mind to begin with. So it only made sense that...
Kneeling there, with his body in my arms, reeling from the worst shock of my life, I had conjured up my grandfather's own boogeyman. Dr. Golan gave me little assignments to help confront my fears. When Dad asked if I would like to help clear out Grandpa Portman's house, Dr. Golan supported the idea.
It's important for him to confront the scene of his trauma.
I was assigned to Grandpa's room. While sorting through his old cigar box full of photographs, I came across something very odd. An envelope with a fading postmark that read,
Cairnholm Island, Wales, UK.
It had been sent by a woman named Miss Peregrine, a kind of bird.
Find the bird.
What if the bird my grandfather had wanted me to go to the island and find was the woman who had rescued him, the headmistress of the children's home? For the first time, my grandfather's last words began to make sense.
If anyone knew the secrets of his childhood,
It would be her.
As you can imagine, convincing my parents to let me go to a remote Welsh island was no easy task.
Absolutely not. We'd be just giving in to these fantasies, and you'll only end up deluded, like your grandfather.
Dr. Golan shocked everyone by not only signing off on it,
But convincing my parents to let me go.
it could be important for him. It's a place that's been so mythologized by his grandfather that visiting could only serve to demystify it. He'll find it's just as normal and unmagical as any place else, and by extension, his grandfather's fantasies will lose their power.
And that was all it took.
We were off to Cairnholm Island. When we arrived on the foggy island, Dad got right to work, bird watching.
I went in search of information about the old house. Excuse me. Do you know anything about the old children's home?
The what?
For a second, I thought we had come to the wrong island.
or worse, that the home was just another thing Grandfather had invented.
It was a home for refugee kids during the war. A big house.
I think I know the place you mean. It's way up on the other side of the island. Follow the path. Say, what's your interest in it anyway?
Just a little genealogy project.
The path to the house was rocky and treacherous.
After several hours, I began to worry that it was just another thing Grandfather had invented.
But then a peregrine falcon swept overhead.
it met the horizon, I saw the outline of an old house in the distance.
Grandfather had described it 100 times, but in his stories, the house was always a bright, happy place.
What stood there now was no refuge from monsters, but a monster itself. Trees burst forth from broken windows. Vine gnawed at the walls. Its roof had collapsed.
I began my search. For what, I wasn't sure.
After hours of wandering through the old empty house, it was getting dark.
I began to feel like I was wasting my time.
Maybe Mom and Dad were right.
Grandpa, why did you send me here? What was it that you wanted me to see?
Abe, is that you?
I thought I dreamt it. I waited for the girl to speak again.
Then, a lantern glowed to life.
And I craned my neck to see a girl peering at me in the darkness.
Hers seemed like a face from a half-remembered dream.
The girl who had spoken was holding a ball of fire in her hands. She leaned in to get a better look, then shook her head.
The light went out.
The girl stood quickly and scampered away.
I'm Jacob Portman, Abe Portman's grandson. Stop, please!
She ran down the path toward the woods, disappearing into the mist.
Her footprints led to a mound of stones shaped like an igloo.
But it was a cairn, one of the Neolithic tombs after which Cairnholm Island was named. The opening was the entrance to a tunnel that burrowed deep inside. It was damp and narrow.
I crawled until I stumbled upon a stone wall.
But there was no girl to be found.
Stop! Maybe I was going crazy. Did I imagine the entire thing? I unfolded myself from the cramped cairn tunnel and stepped outside only to be
Blinded by sunlight. It was the same path as before, but suddenly everything was bathed in cheery sunlight. The sky a candy blue.
I heard a strange noise behind me.
Suddenly, a hand whipped around from behind and pressed something sharp to my throat.
Why are you chasing
I
me?
just wanted to talk to you about the house.
About the children who live there.
Who sent you?
My grandfather, Abraham Portman. I reached into my jacket and produced the letter from Miss Peregrine.
She read the letter, and her face softened. She dropped the knife and led the way toward the house.
When we reached the yard, I gazed in wonder.
This was not the dilapidated old house from this afternoon. It was in pristine condition.
A small wooden stage had been erected. I sat down just as the curtain opened, revealing a straw boater hat floating atop a gaudy red and white striped suit.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miller Nullings at your service. It gives me utmost pleasure to present to you a performance like no other in history. A show of such unrivaled daunting that you simply won't believe your eyes. Good citizens, I give you Miss Peregrine and her peculiar children. For our first illusion, I will produce Miss Peregrine herself.
Mr. Portman, we've been expecting you. This is a little exhibition we used to tour around the continent. You may find it instructive.
One after another, The peculiar children came out of the audience and took the stage, each with their own act.
Miller removed his cape so that he was completely invisible.
Oh!
And juggled glass bottles. Next we have Olive, the levitating girl.
Olive removed her leaded shoes, floated up to a tall bush, and plucked a lost cricket ball out of it.
Mama, the girl on fire.
Emma made fire, swallowed it, then blew it out again, without burning herself.
Enoch, the beekeeper.
Enoch got a bunch of bees in his tum-tum. Not again. Eleanor. Oh.
Fiona, the wild-haired girl.
Fiona raised her hands like a conductor, then poured at the air. Until a row of daisies popped up.
And finally, Bronwyn, the strong girl from Swansea.
Bronwyn lifted an enormous boulder above her head. Then threw it!
The kids ate it up, jumping out of their seats to cheer her on.
I recognized almost all of them from the photographs.
And now, Mr. Portman, what on earth were you searching for in that old house?
You. I didn't know how to find you.
My goodness, hasn't your grandfather told you anything about his old friends?
Well, some things, but for a while, I thought they were fairy tales.
When did you realize Abraham was telling you the truth?
I guess I'm just realizing it now. You see,
He's gone, isn't he?
Yes. But to keep from crying, I gave them only the broad strokes of what had happened.
I was afraid of this.
I want him not to leave.
I don't understand. What happened to him?
Now then, allow us to give you a brief lesson. I think you'll find the answers to most of your questions herein.
The composition of the human species is infinitely more diverse than most humans suspect.
At base, it is a simple dichotomy.
The common people who make up humanity's great bulk.
And the hidden branch.
The peculiars.
We are the latter type.
But why don't people know about you?
They're peculiars all over the world.
Though our numbers are much diminished from what they once were.
Because we are
Different.
persecuted.
So how did you all end up here?
People like myself created places where young peculiars could live a life sheltered from harm. I can manipulate time. I create a time loop peculiar folk can live indefinitely.
A loop?
Find the bird. In the loop.
Yes, you may better know it as the 3rd of September 1940, the day the Germans bombed our island.
Are there other loops besides this one?
Many. Our nearest kin is mothered by
Miss Avocet.
Was my grandfather really running from the Nazis when he came here?
He was. A number of children came to us during those awful years. And of course, there were other dangers.
What other dangers?
There are monsters called
Hollows.
Head to us. You look like nothing more than shadows.
Look who's talking.
Boy.
The Hollows were once peculiar They broke away and became drunk with a thirst for power. They prey upon the blood of peculiars, believing it will make them immortal.
The only thing stopping them from coming after us is they don't know where to find us.
Your grandfather had a rare and peculiar talent, something almost no one else could do.
He could see the monsters.
I considered this for a moment, tried to make sense of it. I'd always known that I was strange, but I never dreamed I was peculiar. But I could see things that others couldn't, which explained why everyone thought that I was crazy. When my grandfather died, I saw something.
You belong here, Jacob.
Common people can't pass through time loops, and they certainly can't see the monsters.
You're just like your grandfather.
You're peculiar!
Just then, Miss Avocet winged in a terrible state.
In the hallway outside Miss Peregrine's office,
Children huddled together, trading rumors of what had happened.
Perhaps they forgot to reset their loop.
That you was the Hollows.
Millard offered to sneak inside and report back on what had happened.
Miss Peregrine sat on the ottoman, feeding spoonfuls of dark liquid to an old woman. She kneaded her bony hands.
I've come to warn you, Alma. You must be on your guard. Do not allow yourselves to be taken by surprise, as I was.
By what?
Something came and kidnapped my sleep-dazed children. I followed them out to the loop to where a gang of hollows were lying in wait.
Then they're coming for us too!
Mr. Nullings! Polite persons do not eavesdrop on the conversations of others, and naked nonetheless. Out! Woo! Miss Peregrine pulled the blanket around Miss Avocet's shoulders.
Leaving Miss Avocet to her grief.
When the children were shuffled off to bed, I asked Miss Peregrine if I could have a word in private. Miss Peregrine, I think there may already be a hollow guest on the island.
Perhaps they followed you here to find this place.
But how could they have known that I was a peculiar? I didn't even know.
If they knew about your grandfather, you can be sure they know about you as well.
Will I ever be safe anywhere?
You can stay with us as long as you like. You're safe here.
But she was wrong. The hollow guest had already found us.
We could hear it breathing.
Jacob! Such peculiar company you're keeping these days.
How do you know my name?
I've been watching you.
How did you know where to find me?
Why, Jacob, you told me yourself.
Dr. Golan!
We may be able to help each other, Jacob. I can offer you
Safety. Money.
I can give you your life back.
All you have to do is work with us.
Help us find more people like yourself. And in return, you'll have
Nothing to fear from our kind.
I'd die before I do anything to help you!
But you already have helped me. It's a pity we won't be having any more
Sessions.
together.
The others couldn't see it in the way I could.
Could recognize a shadow projected on the wall.
What's it doing? Why hasn't it come after us?
It's playing with us. It knows we're trapped.
We ain't done any such thing. Just give me one squirt of goo at his face.
I wouldn't get anywhere near those tongues if I were you.
What about a distraction? Bronwyn made a run for the door and yanked it off its hinges.
Miss Peregrine gathered the children behind it and used it as a shield, keeping the monster at bay. Emma lashed out with the hands like a torch. Leave us be!
The tongues twisted away from the flames, then hitched back like a snake preparing to strike.
Then I remembered Grandfather's frantic words the night he was killed.
Cut out their tongues. Stab them in the eyes. That's all you have to do.
Something sharp!
Miss Peregrine gestured toward her throwing shears in the corner of the room.
My every instinct screamed to run away, but then one clear thought cut through all the static. I won't let us die here! I tumbled toward the shears and screamed, "Come get me, you ugly bastard!"
One of its tongues got hold of an ankle.
As it dragged me towards its jaws, I cut the tongue.
Time seemed to stretch out like they say it does. In car crashes, and train accidents, and free falls from airplanes.
The next thing I felt was a bone-jarring collision as it slammed into the hollow. I saw my shears buried to the hilt in the beast's eye sockets. I could feel it dying, the life draining out of it. It's dead. I killed it.
I know he would have been proud of you.
The time to make a choice had come.
There were other hologasts out there, waiting.
Stay or go.
Neither option seemed good. How could I possibly leave behind everything I'd known and stay? But after all I'd learned, how could I go home?
The peculiar children
And the bird.
were real.
And I
Like my grandfather,
had a responsibility to defend them.
I was peculiar.
As long as the Hollows were hunting me, any life I lived outside the time loop was most likely cut short. I'd spend the rest of my days living in fear, watching over my shoulder, waiting for them. I made my choice. I'd always dreamed of escaping my ordinary life, but my life was never ordinary. I just failed to realize how extraordinary it really was. I was standing on a brand new precipice of before and after. It was strange to think that maybe one day I would have my own cigar box full of old yellow photographs to show skeptical grandchildren. And my own fantastic stories to share.
A.J. Seymour, Enoch, Ensemble.
Isabella Andrews, Miss Avocet, Ensemble.
Brooks Whitlock, Jacob Portman.
Sebastian Garzone, Abraham Portman, Ensemble.
Emma Paff, Emma, Ensemble. Alex Holtman, Olive, Ensemble. Cami Tokowitz, Bronwyn, Ensemble.
Ryan Goldshire, Dr. Golan, Ensemble.
Camilla Kaplanoff, Miss Peregrine, Ensemble.
Austin Dowdy, Father, Ensemble.
Travis Siegel, Miller Nullings, Ensemble.
Katie Snyder, Fiona, Ensemble.